Hi, and welcome to Amanda's Book Corner. I'm Amanda, and this is my review of Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This book has been high on my list ever since it was announced several months ago, and I mentioned before that I really do love Silvia Moreno-Garcia's works. This is actually the fourth book I've read by her. In 2019, I started with Gods of Jade and Shadow, and I loved it. And then in 2020, I read Best in Gothic, and I loved that too. And just recently, I read the reissue of her book, The Beautiful Ones, which I'll link to here, and I really enjoyed that as well. Velvet Was the Night came out in August, but I figured that now, at the end of Latinx Heritage Month and also in the midst of spooky season leading up to Halloween, I thought this was a perfect time to read Velvet Was the Night, which is a noir thriller set in Mexico City. Velvet Was the Night follows two main characters who are both trying to find a missing woman, but for very different reasons. First up is Maite, who is a secretary, and she lives in an apartment in Mexico City, and one day her neighbor across the hall asked her to babysit her cat for the weekend. So Maite babysits the cat, and then Sunday comes around, her neighbor hasn't come back. Monday, Tuesday, the neighbor's still missing. And so she's sick of taking care of the cat because apparently she doesn't like cats for some reason. And she decides that she needs to find Leonora, her missing neighbor, to A, take her cat back, and B, pay her the money that she had promised for babysitting the cat. Maite is no detective, but she is on a mission to find this woman. Then we have Elvis, who's sort of a criminal in a gang, or maybe it's kind of sanctioned by their government and kind of the Mexican version of the CIA. It's called the DFS, Dirección Federal de Seguridad, which no longer exists, by the way. But his boss instructs him to find Leonora, and part of that is researching the different people she has hung out with, but also researching Maite because she seems to know something. So I'll say up front, I did really enjoy this book. I read some reviews of other people kind of saying they didn't like it as much, they didn't think the stakes were high enough, they didn't like the characters. I'm here to say I disagree with them entirely. I actually really liked both of the characters. They're definitely imperfect people, but I actually really enjoyed reading about them, and I thought the stakes were high enough. And also, this is what a noir is like. In noirs, the stakes are supposed to be a little bit lower than in an actual thriller. So if you go into this with the right mindset and the right expectations, I think it's a very fulfilling book. So first, let me talk about why I like the characters. I really liked Maite, and on one hand, I actually identified with her and was able to kind of relate to some of the struggles she's going through. She's a secretary, turning 30 when the book begins, but she's dissatisfied with her career. She wants more, but she also has a little bit of fear and inertia about taking a step forward and maybe moving to a different company or maybe changing career paths entirely. On top of that, her mother and sister don't seem to like or care about her very much. She's also always short on money and having to ask for loans from her mom. And she's kind of separated from the real world. She's not really, instead of really living her life and paying attention to politics and stuff, she lives vicariously through the different media that she consumes. She loves music, and she's always listening to English language records from America. She also really loves reading these romance comics that she buys every week, and she spends all her time thinking about them and imagining scenarios involving these characters. And she's definitely kind of a little bit escapist in that regard. I often just really felt bad for her. I understood her and I felt bad for her in a lot of ways, although I'm not exactly like her. I happen to love cats, unlike her. I have a cat here on my couch next to me, and also I am not a kleptomaniac. Just putting it out there. I enjoyed Elvis too. He's definitely more action-oriented than Maite is, and I think he's a lot more aware of what's going on. He pays a lot more attention to what's going on in the world. He also seems more proactive in his own education and his career trajectory. Well, if you can call it a career. For example, one thing I like is his discipline with learning a new word every day. He doesn't have the greatest education and he didn't finish school, but I admire that every single day he opens up the dictionary and picks a word and tries to learn a new word, expand his vocabulary, and use that word throughout the day to make sure it really sticks. He's kind of a rough guy, with the current job that he does a lot of investigation of people. He knows how to throw a punch and shoot a gun, so he's definitely dangerous in a lot of ways. But he's also like Maite in that he also is a bit escapist and he's obsessed with music. He's constantly listening to American records, and based on his name's not actually Elvis. He stole the name from a certain famous someone that he's obsessed with. Throughout this book, we don't really see Maite and Elvis interact with each other on any grand scale. Instead, this book is set up as a mystery where they're both trying to solve the mystery and find Leonora and try to figure out what she's up to and what she knows, what secret she has that could have political implications. But they're going about figuring it out in very different ways, and their goals and methods are very different from one another. Maite, as I said, she just wants to get her money and get rid of the cat. She's tracking down people that know Leonora. She tracks down her sister. She tracks down Leonora's ex-boyfriend, Ruben. And Ruben actually ends up helping her track down Leonora and also find connections with the friends and the group of people that she knows and see if they have any answers for what happened to her. For his part, Elvis and his co-workers and his colleagues, they're also kind of going down this trail of finding people that knew her and finding out information, but they're doing it in a very different way, and they're not afraid to get their hands dirty in the process. There are two main themes that I see throughout Velvet Was the Night. One is that it is a very political novel, and as the author says in the back of the book, this was inspired by real events that happened in 1971 in Mexico City. It was a time of political unrest, and as you can see in the book, there's a big conflict between left-leaning college-age students and their political activism versus a rather right-wing government that's very anti-communist and trying to squash these left-leaning political ideologies. In this book, you can see how Maite is very unaware of anything that has to do with politics, whereas Elvis, he's very much aware of it and in fact kind of works with the squashing of the left-leaning political activists. Another big theme, of course, is music. As I said, Maite and Elvis are both obsessed with music and they really live vicariously through it. But more than that, it actually connects with the political unrest of the time. As the author has explained, American music, English language music, was considered dangerous by the Mexican government, and it was not very readily available. And there was this idea that American music was brainwashing people and turning them maybe communist or just corrupting their minds in a way that the government didn't want to happen. For example, with Elvis, you can see how the people he works with, they very much distrust him because of his obsession with American music. They think it's dangerous and that it's going to warp his mind in some way. I think music really serves as a great soundtrack through the book. And actually, the author would probably agree because she included a great playlist at the end of the book, including several songs that were mentioned throughout the story. So if you want to check out that Spotify playlist, I'll link it below. So as everything comes together towards the end, there was at least one thing that I guessed, and I was happy to say I was right about it. Not everyone likes to guess the endings of thrillers, but I actually kind of do. It makes me feel accomplished in some way. So yeah, there was one thing that I did guess, but I didn't guess the entirety of how the ending would play out. So it was still exciting for me to read how everything turns out by the end. And if you're just waiting for Maite and Elvis to finally meet each other and, you know, maybe form some kind of relationship with each other, there's a hint of that at the end. I'm not gonna say. Maybe it's not super complete, but there is a hint of it, and that was enough to satisfy me. Kind of opens the door for you to imagine what could happen next in their lives. So I really enjoyed Velvet Was the Night. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I mean, this is the 4th book I read by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, and it will not be the last. I think I said in my previous review of The Beautiful Ones, I love how she hops between different genres and almost never repeats herself. Now, this doesn't mean she never touches on certain ideas ever again. Actually, I think this book might be the most connected to 2 other books that she has, which I have not read yet. One is Untamed Shore, which came out in early 2020, and that one's also, as I understand it, it's also a noir thriller, and it's set in Mexico. And I'll definitely be getting that soon and checking that out because I really enjoyed this one, and I'd like to read her other noir thriller and see how that plays out as well. And in terms of music, she has a book called Signal to Noise, and that's an older book and it has not been in print for a while, but I just found out that she is going to reissue that next year, so I'm really excited and I cannot wait to get my hands on it. So I'll be reading that too. I also just bought her book Certain Dark Things, which is kind of about vampires. I'm not really into vampires, to be honest, but I am interested in reading that one, so I'll be reading that one hopefully soon. And next year she also has a brand new book coming out called The Daughter of Dr. Moreau, and so I'm excited to read that as well. As you can see, I'm a fan of her, and I love how different her books are, but I love that they're always satisfying and they always keep me guessing, and they're all so distinct from each other. So yeah, Velvet Was the Night was a great book. So it looks like I'm 4 for 4 with Silvia Moreno-Garcia's books. I hope you enjoyed this book review video, and if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't want to miss any more of my videos, please ring the bell so you get all my notifications. I'll be publishing about 1 or 2 book reviews every week, and in the coming months, I'll also start doing additional content as well that you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!